It had been another long day for Alana. The sun had already slipped behind the buildings, and the wind carried that cold bite that meant winter wasn't far away. She pulled her thin coat tighter around her as she walked home from the diner. Her feet hurt, her back ached, and her hands still smelled faintly of fried food and cleaning soap. She didn't complain, though. Complaining didn't fix anything. It never had. Her small apartment sat at the edge of the city, tucked behind an old grocery store that had been closed for years. The roof leaked when it rained, the heater barely worked, and the walls were thin enough to hear the neighbors argue through the night. But it was hers, barely. Rent was always due, and she was already 2 weeks behind. The landlord had been patient, but she could tell that patience was running out. As she walked up the cracked steps to her door, she paused and looked at the sky. It was cloudy tonight, no stars, just that gray stretch of nothing. She sighed softly. Inside, the apartment was dim, a small lamp glowing in the corner. Her mother lay on the couch, covered in a blanket, breathing slowly. Alana walked over quietly and adjusted the blanket around her shoulders. "Hey, Mama," she whispered. "I'm home." Her mother stirred but didn't open her eyes. "You eat something?" she murmured. "Later," Alana said softly. "You just rest." The small table near the kitchen held a pile of bills. She tried not to look at them. Instead, she set her bag down and filled a cup with warm water, stirring in a bit of lemon she'd saved from the diner. It wasn't much, but it helped her relax. She sat by the window watching the streetlight flicker outside. The night was quiet except for the hum of a passing car and a dog barking somewhere far away. It was a hard life, but she had learned to live one day at a time. Her mother's health had gotten worse over the past year, and every extra shift at the diner went toward medicine and groceries. Some nights, Alana skipped dinner so her mother could eat, but she didn't mind. What she minded was the loneliness. The constant feeling that she was invisible in a world that moved too fast for people like her. The rain started softly against the window. It grew heavier, turning into a steady rhythm. She sighed and turned off the lamp, ready to rest. Just as she was about to lie down, there was a faint knock at the door. She froze. It was nearly midnight. No one ever visited her at this hour. For a moment, she thought she might be imagining it, but then the knock came again, soft but real. She walked slowly toward the door, her heart beating faster. "Who is it?" she asked. A man's voice answered, calm but tired. "I'm sorry to bother you. Our car broke down the road. I've got my little girl with me. We just need somewhere dry to wait until morning." Alana hesitated. She didn't know this man. The world could be dangerous, and she'd heard too many stories of people getting tricked. But when she looked through the peephole, she saw a tall man standing in the rain, holding a little girl who couldn't have been more than 6 or 7. The girl's small head was resting on his shoulder, her hair wet and tangled. Something inside Alana softened. She knew what it was like to be cold and tired and have nowhere to go. She thought of her mother sleeping on the couch. She thought of all the times strangers had looked away from her when she needed help. Then she unlocked the door. "You can come in," she said quietly. The man looked surprised. "Are you sure? I don't want to trouble you." "It's raining," she said simply. "You'll both get sick out there." He stepped inside, careful not to drip too much water on the floor. The little girl's face peeked out from his shoulder, her eyes wide. Alana offered a small smile. "Hey there, sweetheart," she said softly. "You must be freezing." The girl nodded shyly. Her father rubbed her back. "Thank you," he said again. "I'm David and this is Lily." "I'm Alana," she replied. "You can sit over there." She pointed to the small couch near the heater. The man sat down, helping his daughter out of her wet coat. Alana grabbed an old towel and handed it to them. "It's not much, but it's dry," she said. He smiled gratefully. "You're a blessing tonight, Alana. We didn't think anyone would open the door." She shrugged lightly. "It's just one night. You can stay till morning." As they settled in, she noticed the man's clothes. They were simple but clean, the kind that looked a little too nice for someone truly struggling. His shoes were muddy but expensive looking. His voice was gentle, but there was something about it, steady, polite, almost too careful. He didn't sound like the kind of man who usually wandered dark streets in the rain. Still, she didn't ask questions. She went into the kitchen and found the last bit of soup she'd made 2 days ago. It wasn't much, mostly broth and a few vegetables, but it was warm. She poured it into 2 bowls and carried them over. I don't have much. But you should eat something, she said, setting them on the small table. David looked like he wanted to refuse, but when he saw his daughter shivering, he nodded. Thank you, he said quietly. You're very kind. The little girl's eyes brightened as she took a spoonful. It's good, she said softly. Alana smiled. I'm glad you like it. While they ate, the rain kept falling outside. The sound filled the silence between them. After a few minutes, David looked up. Do you live alone? He asked carefully. Just me and my mom, she said. She's not feeling well, so she's resting. I see, he said, his tone gentle. You work late? At the diner down the road, she said. Been there a few years. He nodded slowly, like he was listening to more than her words. That's hard work, she gave a small laugh. You get used to it. The conversation stayed simple, but something about it felt easy. David wasn't pushy or strange. He asked about the neighborhood, the weather, small things. Every now and then he glanced at his daughter, making sure she was warm enough. He had that quiet way of moving, like someone who'd carried a lot on his shoulders but didn't want anyone else to see it. When the girl finished her soup, she leaned against her father and fell asleep. Alana brought over a blanket and covered her. She's sweet, she said softly. She's been through a lot, David said quietly. His eyes looked distant for a moment. Her mother passed away last year. Alana's heart sank. I'm so sorry, he nodded, his voice low. It's been tough. We were driving to visit her grandmother, but the car broke down and the rain started. I didn't know where else to go. Alana looked at the small sleeping girl and then at him. Well, you're safe here tonight. The couch isn't great, but it's warm. That's more than enough, he said. Thank you. The room grew quiet again. The clock ticked softly in the corner. Alana sat back down by the window, watching the rain slide down the glass. She didn't feel afraid anymore. Just tired, but it was a peaceful kind of tired, the kind that comes when you know you've done the right thing. After a while, she noticed David looking around the room. There wasn't much to see. Old furniture, a few pictures of her mother in younger days, a stack of worn-out books. It was clear that life here was simple, maybe too simple, but Alana didn't apologize for it. You have a nice place, he said kindly. She smiled faintly. It's small, but it's home, he nodded. That's what matters. For the first time that day, Alana felt seen. Not pitied, not judged, just seen. She didn't know who this man really was or what his story might be, but in that moment, it didn't matter. Sometimes people just needed to be kind to each other without expecting anything in return. The rain began to slow near midnight. Her mother coughed softly in the other room, and Alana went to check on her. When she came back, David was adjusting the blanket over his daughter, whispering something to her. He looked up at Alana and smiled faintly. She's warm now, he said. That's good, Alana replied. Get some rest. I'll see you in the morning. He hesitated, then said quietly, You didn't have to do this, you know. Most people wouldn't. Alana shrugged again. I know what it's like to have nowhere to go. I couldn't just close the door. He looked at her for a long moment, something thoughtful in his eyes, then nodded. You've got a kind heart, Alana. She didn't know how to respond to that. Kindness to her wasn't something special, it was survival. It was what kept the world from turning too cold. She turned off the light, leaving only the small lamp by the couch. The room glowed softly. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. The air was still, peaceful. She listened to the sound of their quiet breathing, the steady rhythm that filled the silence of her lonely apartment. For the first time in a long time, the place didn't feel so empty. She didn't know that the man sleeping on her couch wasn't who he appeared to be. She didn't know that her small act of kindness, done out of simple humanity, would soon change her life in ways she couldn't imagine. All she knew was that tonight, she'd helped someone who needed it, and that, she thought as she closed her eyes, was enough. The morning light crept through the thin curtains, painting soft streaks of gold across the living room floor. Alana stirred awake to the smell of something faintly warm and pleasant. For a moment she thought she was dreaming. But when she opened her eyes, she saw movement in the small kitchen. David was standing by the stove, carefully stirring something in a pan. His little girl sat at the table, swinging her legs and humming quietly. Alana blinked in surprise. She rubbed her eyes, trying to remember if she had even told him where things were. Good morning, he said when he noticed her. His voice was calm, with that same polite tone as before. I hope you don't mind. I found some eggs in the fridge. and wanted to make breakfast to thank you. Alana sat up, still half asleep. Oh, you didn't have to do that, she said. I know, he replied with a small smile. But you did a lot for us last night. It's the least I can do. The little girl looked up and waved shyly. Good morning, she said in her small voice. Alana smiled back. Good morning, sweetheart. It was strange having someone else move around her kitchen. Usually the mornings were quiet. Just her and her mother, the sound of the kettle and the hum of the old fridge. But now the apartment felt alive in a different way. There was laughter. There was warmth. David handed her a plate a few minutes later. It wasn't fancy, just scrambled eggs and toast, but he'd somehow made it feel like a real breakfast. She couldn't remember the last time someone had cooked for her. This looks great, she said. I'm not much of a cook, he replied. But my daughter seems to think I am, the little girl giggled. Daddy always burns toast. David laughed softly. Not this time, though. They all ate together at the small table. The mood was easy, comfortable, like they had known each other longer than just one night. Alana noticed how gentle David was with his daughter, the way he spoke to her, the way he listened when she talked. It was clear he loved her deeply. After breakfast, David helped wash the dishes. Alana tried to stop him, but he insisted. You let us stay here, he said. I can at least help clean up. As he dried a plate, he looked around again. You've made this place cozy, he said quietly. Alana gave a small laugh. I try, it's not much, but it's home. He nodded slowly. Home isn't about how big a place is. It's about how it feels. She liked the way he said that. There was something thoughtful in his words, something that came from experience. Outside, the rain had stopped, and sunlight was starting to break through the clouds. The day looked brighter, even if the street was still wet and glistening. David glanced out the window. The tow truck should be here soon, he said. I called before you woke up. That's good, Alana replied. You'll be back on the road soon. He smiled politely, but for a moment his eyes seemed distant, almost sad. While waiting, Alana made some tea and sat with the little girl on the couch. You like tea? She asked. The girl nodded. I like the smell. My mom used to drink tea every morning. Alana hesitated, not wanting to stir any sadness, but the girl's tone was calm, like she'd already learned how to carry her memories gently. Your mom sounds nice, Alana said softly. She was, the girl said, smiling faintly. She used to sing when she made pancakes. Alana smiled. That sounds lovely. David watched quietly from the kitchen. His expression softened as he listened to his daughter talk. When their eyes met, Alana offered a kind smile, and he returned it with one of quiet gratitude. When the tow truck finally arrived, the sound broke the calm of the small apartment. David stood and glanced toward the window. That must be them, he said. The little girl pouted. Do we have to go already? He crouched down beside her. We have to, sweetheart. But maybe we'll see Alana again sometime. Alana didn't expect to feel a tiny tug of sadness at those words. It was strange. She had only met them last night, but somehow they already felt like old friends. David gathered their things and checked his wallet. I should pay you for the stay, he said. She frowned. No, please. You don't owe me anything. I insist, he said gently. You gave us food and shelter. And you made breakfast, she replied. We're even. He studied her for a moment, as if trying to understand her better. Then he smiled faintly and nodded. All right, but at least take this. He pulled out a small card from his wallet and handed it to her. It was plain white with simple black writing, just his name and a phone number. If you ever need anything, call me, he said. She took the card but didn't think much of it. Thank you, she said. I'll keep it, he smiled. I mean it, Alana. You helped us when you didn't have to. That means something. She shrugged lightly, embarrassed by the attention. Anyone would have done the same. He gave a small laugh. I don't think that's true. Outside, the tow truck driver honked once. David lifted his daughter into his arms. The little girl waved. Bye, Alana. Bye, sweetie, she said, waving back. Take care, both of you. David paused at the door. You take care, too, he said softly. And thank you for everything. Then they were gone. The apartment felt quiet again. The rain had stopped completely, leaving the air fresh but still. Alana looked down at the card in her hand. The name David Kingston was printed neatly across the top. It sounded familiar somehow, but she couldn't place it. Probably just coincidence, she thought. She tucked the card into a drawer and went to check on her mother, who was awake now. Who was at the door earlier? Her mother asked weakly. Just a man and his little girl, Alana said. Their car broke down last night, so they stayed here till morning. Her mother smiled faintly. You've always had a soft heart, baby. You remind me of your grandmother. Alana laughed quietly. She was kinder than me. No, her mother said softly. She just lived long enough to see her kindness come back to her. You will too. The words lingered with Alana all day. She went to work later that afternoon, tired but somehow lighter. She told no one about the strange man and his daughter. It felt like something small but precious, a secret piece of good in a world that could be so hard. The week moved on as usual. Work, bills, medicine, more work. Her days blended together in the same tired rhythm. But every once in a while she found herself thinking about that morning. The sound of laughter, the smell of eggs cooking, the warmth that had filled her little apartment. One evening, she pulled out the card again and turned it over in her hand. The name still looked familiar, but she didn't know why. Maybe he owned a business nearby or something. It didn't matter. What mattered was that she'd done what her heart told her to do, and that was enough. A few days later, she was walking home when she saw something strange. Parked across the street was a sleek black car, the kind she usually only saw in magazines. The windows were tinted, but as she walked by, one of them rolled down. A man stepped out, dressed in a neat suit. He looked official, not like someone from her neighborhood. He smiled politely and asked, "Are you Alana?" She nodded slowly, confused. "Yes, I am." He handed her a small envelope. A message from Mr. Kingston. Before she could ask who that was, the man tipped his hat and walked back to the car. The vehicle drove off quietly, leaving her standing there with the envelope in her hand. Inside was a handwritten note. Dear Alana, thank you again for opening your home to me and my daughter. Your kindness reminded me that there are still good people in this world. I wanted to send you something small to help you and your mother. With gratitude, David Kingston. Attached was a check. Alana froze when she saw the number written on it. It wasn't just something small. It was enough to pay off her rent for several months, maybe longer. She sank down on the edge of her bed, her hands shaking. No one had ever done something like that for her. For a long time she just stared at the paper, unsure what to feel. Then quietly she whispered, "Thank you," as if he could somehow hear her. She didn't know yet who he truly was, or how much more her life was about to change. For now, she only knew that the man she helped on a rainy night had seen her heart, and had not forgotten it. The next few days went by like a quiet dream. Alana kept the note from David safely folded in her dresser drawer next to the check. Every morning when she opened it to get ready for work, she saw the envelope sitting there like a reminder that kindness still mattered. She hadn't told anyone about it, not even her mother. Something about it felt too personal, too precious. It wasn't just about the money. It was the thought behind it. The idea that someone had seen her struggle and wanted to help without asking for anything in return. But at night, when she lay awake listening to the wind outside, she couldn't help wondering who David really was. His name kept rolling around in her mind. David Kingston. It sounded important, like a name that belonged in a newspaper or on a company sign somewhere. One evening after work, she stopped by the small library near the diner. It wasn't much, but it had a couple of computers for public use. She sat down at one, typed his name into the search bar, and waited for the results to appear. What she saw made her blink in disbelief. There were news articles, interviews, magazine covers, all showing the same man she'd seen sitting in her tiny apartment, holding his daughter in the rain. The same man she'd shared soup with, David Kingston, founder and CEO of Kingston Properties. He wasn't just a successful man. He was one of the richest developers in the city, known for building luxury homes, hotels, and community centers. He was a millionaire many times over. For a long moment, Alana just sat there staring at the screen. Her heart thumped in her chest. That can't be him, she thought. But the photos showed the same kind smile, the same calm eyes. There was no mistake. She leaned back in the chair, trying to make sense of it all. Why had he never said anything? Why had a man like that been walking in the rain with his daughter, looking for a place to stay? The thought made her dizzy. She remembered his simple clothes, his quiet tone, how he'd washed dishes like any regular person. There had been nothing about him that said millionaire. He'd just seemed tired and kind. When she got home that night, she sat at the kitchen table staring at the empty space where he had once sat. Her mother noticed her quietness. "You okay, baby?" her mother asked softly from the couch. Alana looked up and tried to smile. "Yeah, Mama, just thinking." Her mother nodded knowingly. "You've been thinking a lot lately." Alana hesitated. "Mama, do you believe people come into our lives for a reason?" Her mother smiled faintly. "Of course I do. Some people are lessons, some are blessings. Sometimes both." Alana thought about that long after her mother fell asleep. She didn't know if she was a lesson or a blessing in David's life, but she knew one thing: he had become one in hers. The next morning, Alana made a decision. She didn't want to keep the check. She didn't feel right using his money. Helping him had been something she did from her heart, not for any reward. So she took the envelope, placed it in her bag, and headed to the downtown office listed on his company's website. The Kingston Properties building was tall and shining, all glass and marble. Alana felt small walking through its huge doors. The receptionist looked up as she approached. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you?" Alana hesitated, clutching her bag. I need to see Mr. Kingston." The woman smiled politely, used to such requests. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but he knows me," Alana said quickly. "My name is Alana." The receptionist typed something into her computer, then looked up. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Kingston is in a meeting right now. I can leave a message if you'd like." Alana nodded slowly. "Yes, please. Just tell him Alana stopped by to return something." She took out the envelope and placed it carefully on the counter. The receptionist promised to pass it along. Alana thanked her and turned to leave. But as she walked toward the door, she heard someone call her name. "Alana?" She turned. David was standing there, dressed in a crisp suit, looking both surprised and happy to see her. "Mr. Kingston," she said softly, unsure what else to call him. He smiled. "Please, just David, I didn't think I'd see you again." She held up the envelope. "I came to return this." "I can't take your money." He frowned slightly. "Why not?" "Because I didn't help you for a reward," she said. "You and your daughter needed a place to stay, and that's all it was." David walked closer, his expression thoughtful. "I know that." "That's exactly why you deserve it." She shook her head. "No, sir. I can't." He looked at her quietly for a moment, then said, "Can we talk somewhere private?" He led her to a small sitting area near the back of the lobby. It was quiet there, away from the noise of the office. "I understand how you feel," he said gently. "But please believe me when I say this isn't charity. It's gratitude. You opened your door to two strangers without asking who we were. You gave us warmth when you barely had enough for yourself. That kind of kindness is rare." Alana looked down. "I didn't think much of it." "That's what makes it special," he said. There was a long pause. He looked tired again, the same way he had that night in her apartment. "When my wife passed away," he said quietly, "I lost myself for a while. I had money. I had everything people think matters, but I felt empty. I started driving at night just to clear my head. That's how I ended up in your neighborhood that night. The car broke down and I had nowhere nearby to go. You were the only one who opened the door." Alana listened, her chest tightening. He continued softly. "That night you reminded me what real kindness looks like. You reminded me of the kind of person I want my daughter to grow up to be. The check, it's just my way of saying thank you." Nothing more. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The sounds of phones ringing and footsteps outside filled the silence. Finally, Alana sighed. "I still don't feel right taking it," he smiled. "Then think of it as a gift for your mother." "Not for you," her eyes softened. "You remembered her?" "I remember everything about that night," he said quietly. "The way you took care of your mother even when you were tired. The way you smiled even though life wasn't easy. You gave more than you realized, Alana." She blinked back a sudden sting of tears. "I didn't do anything special." "You did," he said simply. After a long pause, she nodded. "All right. But I want to earn it. I don't want it just handed to me." He smiled warmly. "Then maybe you can help me with something." She frowned, confused. "Help you?" "I've been thinking about opening a new community center on the south side," he said. "A place where families can find support, food, maybe even job training. I could use someone who understands what people there really need." "Someone like you?" Alana's mouth fell slightly open. "You want me to work for you?" "I want you to work with me," he corrected gently. You have a good heart. I can teach business, but I can't teach compassion. Her hands trembled slightly. I don't know anything about offices or projects or big companies. You'll learn, he said. All you need is the same heart that opened that door for me and my daughter. For the first time in a long time, Alana smiled without hesitation. I'll think about it. Good, he said. Take your time, but know that the offer stands. They talked for a while longer. About the project, about life, about the little things that made people human. When she finally left the building, the sun was bright, and the city seemed a little less heavy. That evening, when she came home, her mother was sitting by the window, smiling faintly. You look different, her mother said. Do I? Alana asked, setting down her bag. Yeah, happier. Alana sat beside her. I saw that man again, the one who stayed with us. Her mother's eyes widened a bit. The one with the little girl? Yeah, Alana said softly. Turns out he's not just anyone, Mama. He's a big businessman. A millionaire. Her mother laughed softly. Well, isn't that something? He offered me a job, Alana continued. Said he's building a community center. Her mother reached for her hand and squeezed it. You see, baby? I told you kindness always finds its way back. Alana smiled and rested her head on her mother's shoulder. Outside, the sky glowed with the colors of sunset. The world still had its struggles, but for the first time, she felt like maybe her life was turning toward something better. She didn't know what the future held, but she felt ready for it. The days that followed felt different for Alana. It was as if her life had quietly opened a new door. She still went to work at the diner, still cared for her mother, still lived in that small apartment, but now there was a spark of something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Every morning, she looked out the window and thought about what David had said. I can teach business, but I can't teach compassion. Those words echoed in her mind like a gentle song. She didn't know if she was ready to work in some big company or help build a community center, but deep down she wanted to try. A week later, she finally called him. When his voice came through the phone, calm and warm as always, she almost forgot what she planned to say. Hi, it's me, Alana, she said. I'm glad you called, he said right away. I was hoping you would. I thought about your offer, she said quietly. I don't know much about your world, but if you still need help, I'd like to be part of it. I'm very happy to hear that, he said. You start when you're ready. I'll make sure someone walks you through everything. And just like that, Alana's life began to change. The next week, she found herself standing in front of a brand new building in the city's south side. The walls were painted soft beige, and the big sign above the door read Kingston Community Center. Inside, the air smelled fresh and clean, with boxes still stacked in corners and furniture waiting to be arranged. A few people moved around, carrying clipboards and setting things up. David was there too, dressed simply this time, no suit, no tie. Just a white shirt and rolled-up sleeves. When he saw her, he smiled. You made it? Alana smiled back, trying not to show how nervous she felt. I did. Still feels strange being here. You'll get used to it, he said kindly. This place will help a lot of people, and I want you to be part of building that. He introduced her to a few other team members, designers, volunteers, and social workers. They were friendly, welcoming, and curious about her story. When she told them she used to work at a diner, nobody judged her. One of them said, people who've lived the struggle understand it better than anyone else. That's what this place needs. For the first time in a long while, Alana felt like she belonged somewhere. Over the next few weeks, she helped organize supplies, met local families, and planned food drives. She worked closely with the volunteers, often staying late to clean up or prepare for the next day. Every night she went home tired but fulfilled. Her mother noticed the change. You come home smiling now, she said one evening as Alana served her dinner. I feel useful, Mama, Alana said softly. Like I'm doing something that matters. Her mother nodded with a knowing smile. You always mattered. You just needed a place to show it. One afternoon, while she was sorting clothes for a donation drive, Alana noticed David standing near the doorway, watching quietly. You're working too hard, he said as he walked in. She laughed. You sound like my mother. She's a wise woman then, he said, smiling. He helped her fold a few shirts, his movements slow and thoughtful. You've done a lot here already. Everyone keeps saying how kind you are to the people who come in. I just try to treat them how I'd want to be treated, she said simply. Most of them just need someone to listen. That's exactly why I wanted you here, he said. Alana paused, glancing at him. Why did you build this place, really? She asked. You already have everything. You didn't have to do all this. David looked down for a moment, his face thoughtful. After my wife passed, I realized I'd built a world full of things, but none of it felt real anymore. I wanted to do something that would make her proud. She used to volunteer at shelters. She believed everyone deserved a second chance. Alana listened quietly. There was a tenderness in his voice that she hadn't heard before. So this center, it's for her? She asked softly. He nodded. In a way, yes. But now it's also for people like you. People who remind me that goodness still exists. Her heart felt full hearing that. She didn't know what to say, so she just smiled and went back to folding. As the weeks went on, word about the new community center spread fast. Families started coming every day. Some for food, some for clothes, others just for a place to rest. Alana became one of the most familiar faces there. Children ran to her when she arrived, calling her name, and she always greeted them with a laugh or a hug. She worked with parents to fill out job forms, helped elderly neighbors pick up groceries, and listened to stories that broke her heart and healed it at the same time. And through it all, David was there, quietly supporting everything, always kind, never proud. He talked to people like they mattered, no matter who they were. He'd walk through the center with his daughter, who now spent most afternoons playing with the other children. One evening, after everyone had gone home, David and Alana stood outside watching the sunset. The building behind them glowed in the warm orange light. You've changed this place already, he said softly. Alana smiled. You built it. I just helped fill it. He shook his head. Buildings don't come alive until people like you walk into them. She looked at him, her eyes gentle. You give me too much credit. I don't think so, he said. There was a quiet pause between them, the kind that felt peaceful instead of awkward. In that silence, Alana realized how far she'd come. From that rainy night in her tiny apartment to standing here, part of something that mattered. A few days later, Alana got a letter at home. When she opened it, she found a notice from her landlord. Her building was being sold and tenants were being asked to move out within a month. Her stomach dropped. She didn't have the savings to move quickly, and her mother's health made it even harder. That night, she barely slept. The next morning, she went to work as usual, trying to hide her worry. But David noticed right away. Something's wrong, he said quietly when he saw her sitting alone after the meeting. She tried to brush it off. It's nothing. Just a small problem at home. He sat down beside her. Tell me. She hesitated, then told him everything. The notice, the rent, her mother's condition. He listened without interrupting, his eyes steady and kind. When she finished, he said, You shouldn't have to go through that alone. I'll figure something out, she said quickly. I always do. He smiled faintly. I know you will, but sometimes it's okay to let others help you. That evening, he called her outside after work. Come with me, he said. They drove a few blocks away, stopping in front of a newly renovated apartment building. It was clean and bright, with flowers planted near the entrance. What is this? She asked, confused. David looked at her with that same calm smile. It's yours, her eyes widened. What do you mean mine? I bought this building months ago. One of the apartments is ready, and I've been saving it for someone who deserves it. David, I can't. He raised a hand gently. You can. And you will. It's not charity. It's gratitude, Alana. You've given more to others than most people give in a lifetime. Let this be a place where you and your mother can rest without worry. Tears welled in her eyes, and she shook her head slowly. I don't know how to thank you. You already have, he said softly. Every day you show up and help people, you thank me without even realizing it. Alana looked up at the building again, her heart so full it hurt. For the first time in years, she felt safe, not just in a physical way, but in a deep human way, the kind of safety that comes from knowing someone truly cares. That night, as she helped her mother pack a few things, her mother smiled through tears. You see, baby? I told you kindness comes back around. Alana laughed softly, holding her mother's hand. Yeah, Mama. I see it now. Later, as she stood on the balcony of their new apartment, the city lights twinkling in the distance, she thought about how one small act of kindness had changed everything. A door opened on a rainy night, and now, a new chapter of her life had begun. And though she still didn't fully understand why life had brought David and his daughter to her doorstep, she knew one thing for sure. Sometimes blessings come in the most unexpected ways, and one kind choice can echo far beyond what you can see. Months passed, and life slowly found a new rhythm for Alana. The new apartment felt like a dream she still couldn't believe was real. Every morning, she woke up to sunlight spilling through the windows, her mother humming softly in the kitchen, and a quiet peace she hadn't felt in years. She still worked at the community center every day, now helping lead the volunteers and organize programs. The center had become like a second home, full of laughter, hope, and stories of people finding their way back from hard times. Every time she saw someone walk in with that same lost look she once had, she made sure to greet them with warmth. "You're not alone here," she'd say, and she meant it. David still visited often, sometimes with his daughter, sometimes just to check on how things were running. He always brought something: books for the reading room, toys for the kids, or food for the pantry. But more than that, he brought a calm presence that made people feel seen and cared for. Alana and he had become close friends. They talked often about life, plans for the center, and dreams for the future. But there was always something unspoken between them, a quiet understanding, a connection that didn't need words. One bright afternoon, the community center held a small celebration to mark 6 months since it opened. The halls were filled with colorful balloons, the smell of baked pies, and the sound of children laughing. Alana walked through the crowd, greeting everyone, making sure things were running smoothly. David was talking to a group of parents near the entrance, while his daughter played with the other kids in the corner, her laughter ringing through the room like music. When David caught Alana's eye, he smiled. "You did this," he said as she approached. "We did this," she corrected, smiling back. "All of us." He nodded, but his eyes lingered on her for a moment longer. "Still, none of this would have happened without your heart leading the way." She blushed slightly, brushing it off. "You're giving me too much credit again." Just then his daughter ran over and tugged at Alana's hand. "Come play, please," she begged. Alana laughed, letting herself be pulled into the game. For a while, she forgot about everything: the past, the struggles, the long nights of worry. She just laughed and played, her heart light. When the sun began to set, David joined them outside where the kids were chasing bubbles. His daughter leaned against him, tired but happy, while Alana stood beside them, watching the sky turn shades of pink and gold. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "Yes," he replied, looking not at the sky, but at her. "It really is." Weeks later, the center began planning a new project, one that would help train single mothers in different job skills. It was something Alana had dreamed about for a long time. She presented the idea during a meeting, her voice full of passion. "These women have so much potential," she said. "They just need a little help, someone to believe in them. We can offer classes, teach them basic finance, computers, childcare, anything that gives them power to stand on their own." Everyone agreed it was a wonderful idea, and David looked at her with quiet pride. "You're turning this place into more than a center," he said after the meeting. "You're turning it into a movement." Alana smiled. "I just want people to have what I didn't have when things were hard, a hand to hold." "You've become that hand for many," he said softly. She looked down, her heart swelling with emotion. "I learned that from you," she whispered. As the program grew, more families started coming. Some of the mothers who had once come seeking help now returned as volunteers. They often told others about the woman who never judged, never turned anyone away. One rainy evening, a young woman came to the center holding a little boy. She was cold, hungry, and clearly scared. The sight of her brought tears to Alana's eyes. It reminded her of that night so long ago when she had opened her door to a stranger and his child. Without hesitation, she gave the woman dry clothes, a meal, and a place to rest. Later that night, when everyone else had gone, Alana sat quietly at her desk thinking. Life had come full circle. She was now doing for others what someone once did for her. The thought filled her with a deep, quiet joy. One Sunday morning, Alana received a message from David asking if she could meet him at a nearby park. The air was cool and fresh, the trees covered in soft green leaves. When she arrived, David and his daughter were feeding ducks by the lake. The little girl spotted Alana and ran to hug her, squealing, "Auntie Alana!" Alana laughed, hugging her back. "I missed you too." David smiled as he watched them. "She's been asking about you all week," he said. "Well, I've been busy saving the world," Alana teased, and they both laughed. After the little girl ran off to chase the ducks again, David turned to Alana, his expression thoughtful. "You know, that night when we met, I thought I was helping you by offering that job. But I see now it was you who helped me." Alana looked surprised. "Helped you? How?" "I was lost," he said quietly. "After my wife passed, I stopped believing in people. I had money but no faith left in humanity. That night you showed me that kindness still existed. You reminded me what it means to care, to trust again. You brought light back into my life." Her eyes softened. "You gave me a second chance too, David. Maybe we saved each other." He smiled at that, and for a moment neither of them said anything. The sound of laughter, wind, and the rippling water filled the silence between them. It was the kind of peace that didn't need words. Months later, the community center expanded into another neighborhood. David made sure Alana was part of every step. Her leadership, compassion, and strength had become the heart of the entire project. People began calling her the Angel of the South Side. She always laughed when she heard it, but deep down she felt grateful. On the opening day of the new branch, reporters came to cover the event. They interviewed David and asked what inspired him to start this mission. He looked straight at the camera and said, "It all began with one woman who opened her door on a rainy night. She didn't know who I was. She just saw a father and child in need and chose kindness. Everything you see today started because of her heart." Alana stood nearby, her eyes shining with tears she tried to hide. The crowd applauded, and for the first time, she truly felt the weight of how one small act of goodness had rippled out into the world. After the ceremony, she found David standing alone, looking out at the smiling faces. "You didn't have to say all that," she said softly. "I meant every word," he replied. "The world needs to know that kindness still wins." She looked at him, smiling. "You never stop surprising me," he chuckled. "Neither do you." As the years passed, the center grew into several branches. Alana continued her work, always humble, always kind. Her mother's health improved, and she often visited the center, proud of the woman her daughter had become. David and Alana remained close friends, bound by something deeper than gratitude. They became family, not by blood but by choice. His daughter grew up calling Alana her second mother, and Alana treated her as if she were her own. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, Alana would sit by her window, remembering the girl she once was, the one struggling to pay rent, working late nights at the diner. Unsure if life would ever change, she'd smile softly to herself and whisper, "You did good. You never gave up." Because she hadn't. She had chosen kindness when she had little to give, and in return life had given her everything she never thought she'd have: purpose, peace, and love that went beyond words. Years later, on the anniversary of the community center's founding, a large mural was painted on the wall outside. It showed a woman opening her door to a man and his child on a rainy night. Underneath it were the words, "One act of kindness can change a life." When Alana saw it, she stood there for a long moment, her heart full. Then David came to stand beside her, both of them looking at the painting in silence. He turned to her and said softly, "That night you gave us shelter, but you did more than that. You gave us hope." Alana smiled, her eyes glistening. "And you gave me a reason to believe that good things can find their way back." He nodded. "They always do." As they stood there, surrounded by laughter, music, and the warmth of people whose lives had been touched by kindness, Alana realized that her story wasn't just her own anymore. It belonged to everyone who had ever believed that love, generosity, and compassion could change the world. And in that moment, under the evening sky, she felt at peace because she finally understood that even the smallest kindness can echo for a lifetime.